Captain Jack, and welcome to Captain Jack's podcast, where we're talking Raider football. Let's go.
I'm going to put it to you as succinctly as possible. I am a Raiders fan. I wish they would stay in Oakland.
Yeah. I've seen it all. From the Mad Bomber LaMonica.
LaMonica went on to devastate Buffalo with 6 touchdown passes in the first half.
After a night in the hospital, Daryl LaMonica threw 3 touchdown passes.
Hitting the Snake Stapler.
There he is, fading, looking. He's under the gun.
Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls.
Way up the field. Grabs one of out. Makes the catch at the 39. He's got it all the way. 39 yards. Touchdown Raiders.
The Raiders are in my corner. I bleed silver and black.
Pulling it off to the right. And up to Smith. Heading wide again. Gabriel up the middle. He goes.
When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
Touchdown Raiders!
Hey Raider Nation, this is John Gruden. I'm back in black. I'm about to go sign my contract, and just can't tell you how excited I am.
I am a Raiders fan, and I'm going to call things out as I see them. I don't want to have a cancer in the locker room. I will say what I want about any member of the Raiders, be it the staff, the team, player, management. I'm going to say it.
Touchdown Raiders!
Let's focus. There we go. Eventually, that won't be as much of a problem as I hope it is to you, that it is to you now. One of those things that obviously with the redo of the room and the studio when I get it done, we'll get a few things done. I'd like for hopefully get Kamish to help me with some of the, he has these sliding boards that go up. It's a little bit easier to do. A little bit of prop usage, but you know what? It's all good because it's really about the content. And the content here on Raider Reaction, and with me in particular, because, again, I like to make sure that we bring you guys quality people. And there's not too much of a person that's better quality in my mind than John Kingdon. And if you have not already gotten his book, Al Davis Behind the Raiders Shield, go out and get it. Look for it. There's its own website. John will be, I'm sure, will be talking about the website when he calls in. So you can talk to him about it. And as I say in the paragraph leading up to the show, if there's something in particular that you want to talk about, we're going to try to do it where we're going to have the video come up. I'm going to try to roll through Google Hangouts. Next time, I'll probably have it on another browser, so I won't have to go back and forth. But we're going to have you be able to call in personally to the show, because there's nothing more cool than you guys talking to the people we have in question. And I'm going to roll through and I'm going to go through the scrolls as you guys got questions, and I'll try to get them on there. But if you want to go and call into the show, then call that number, 813-699-0834. I'm going to try to multitask and go back and forth on the same browser. Again, next time I'll remember to have the number on a different browser, so I'll be able to do it a little bit easier. But you know what? We're on right now. It's on. It's on like Donkey Kong, as they say. So we have the usual cast of characters up in here. Jason and Leslie and Rocky. You know, Danny, good to see you got a laugh out of something. Michael is in here. And let me scroll up, see if I'm forgetting anybody. Be remiss too. I did say Rocky, I think, and I said Jason. So if I missed you, I apologize. But it is a Sunday. It's the end of the weekend, so we got work to look forward to tomorrow. I say look forward to in with the air quotes. We do things because we have a job. And with the job, we get paid. And in order to get paid, you do things that are needed. So it is what it is. What it is. Leslie's here. Standing the heat in Vegas. Oh, no, you're withstanding the heat in Vegas. Yeah, that's not my idea of a good time, Leslie. I mean, I live in Florida, and I know what it's like for the heat as it is. Black Monday tomorrow, yes, it will be. And again, we love everybody we have here because, again, in a minute, and I'm hoping it's within a minute, I told John to call in about now, is that we're going to have Mr. Kingdon join us. But while we're waiting, again, I have the one line open. That's 813-699-0834. I got nobody on. So you can roll right into that number, and you can have your questions ready for John Kingdon. Any takers? Nobody wants to be the first one, huh? I see how it is. That's fine. I mean, I'll roll with the questions as well. And John will, I'm sure, has his big favorite Al Davis stories that we'll have with you. Jeff, hello to you from welcome aboard. It's a fun Sunday night. Again, the end of the weekend. This is actually the first weekend I had where there it is. John's calling, so we'll answer that right now. And guess you need to put him on speaker too. Hey John, I got you on speaker. How you doing there, shipmate?
Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I didn't know how much longer I can, stretch out the audience words as I was waiting for you, but you were right on time. So that was a good timeline to make sure that I had you in there about 7 to 8 minutes after the hour. So thank you, sir. And everybody knows who you are. So if there's anything that I'm remiss at, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, please, John.
Sure. Well, I'm John Kingdon. I worked for the team for the Raiders for about 33 years. In that time, I got pretty close to Al Davis, and excuse me. After I left, I co-authored a book with Bruce Kebrick, who also worked there a number of years, and we did it. I was director of scouting. Bruce was a national scout. And we brought a lot of experience, a lot of anecdotes, and as the good captain here can attest, it's an awfully interesting book. And if you have any interest in the Raiders, particularly the Al Davis years, this is something you really need to get a hold of.
Yes, it is. And John, be sure to. I know you guys had your own website for it. So first off, can you guys hear John on the phone? I want to have if you guys can hear John, okay. Let me know because I have the volume up on my phone as much as possible So if somebody can give me a thumbs up that the volume is good for John's phone call, I would appreciate it. And
there you go.
There's a little bit of a lag, so hopefully we'll have somebody. I got a thumbs up. Okay. Got 2 thumbs up. Okay, good. So we're good to go there. So John, go ahead and put out that website. Thank you there, Matt, as well. Go ahead and put out that website where they can get that book from you personally.
Well, we've got, again, our website, and it's interesting in and of itself. We have a lot of interviews and such and endorsements. It's behindtheshield.net. And if you want to get it personally autographed, you can certainly get it off of that. And Amazon also has it, where you can also get it on as an Audible book or a Kindle book, as well as the hardback. But we can get the hardback directly from us. Would be pretty cool. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I definitely went to your. I'd rather give you the business than anybody else.
Well, I appreciate that too. That's very cool.
And I will say though that the having the Audible book actually intrigues me, because again, I've only been able to read bits and pieces, and this time, John, I actually got a chance to skim around in the book, whereas before I was flying totally blind. But I did skim a little bit more this time. Although I'm a busy guy, I wanted to have at least a little bit more to throw at you than the average bearer, so I don't go in there with my thumb up my tuchus, sounding like I don't know what the heck's going on here.
Well, there's a lot, and again, Q&As are good, but we do it on a lot of levels. It's not a sort of a chronological book. It's more of a thematic chapters. Getting Al knowing Al a little more personally in the first few chapters than has ever been dealt with, and then the next few chapters are Al's football philosophy, and then there's a couple of chapters on people that are very close, that were very close with Al from before I got there. Ron Wolf, obviously, was in the Hall of Fame, and a man named Joe Madro, who a lot of people don't know. But if you're in football way back when, he may have been the best offensive line coach that in the NFL. He was the guy that got Al hired by the San Diego Chargers. He's presented Sid Gilman and Ron Mix to the Hall of Fame. So we have those chapters, and then we get into the John Gruden years, and then the fiasco with the Lane Kiffin stuff, and then a couple of draft chapters. Put you in the draft room with us. I guess if you at the end we kind of sum it up. So we really approach it from a lot of different perspectives, and I think it's a real revelation to people that really were big Raider fans, and I think we're really the only people that wrote a book from the inside, particularly from the player personnel perspective, and as from stories about Al. That really that I had that a lot of people didn't know. We we had a real connection. We were both New Yorkers, and I think that helped us. That helped him to kind of bridge any kind of age gaps we obviously had. But came very very close relationship. Came to I think he could unload on me the way he couldn't with other people, because I think we had a fairly a lot of background similarity. We both were Jewish, and we both went to started out as small schools in Ohio. I went to Oberlin and graduated from there, and went to the University of Massachusetts after that. And then Al started at Wittenberg College in Ohio and ended up at Syracuse. So it all came together to have a pretty good friendship and relationship, and I was able to share many things in this book. So again, if they get any other questions that people have, I'm more than happy to answer, and anything that maybe I didn't cover from people that have read the book. So I hope that kind of sums it up.
No, that's good actually. Going up to, shall we say, when I was in New York a couple of weekends ago, and again, I'm half Jewish myself, so going around New York and going through Brooklyn, where I think Al was from, it actually was unique to me to go through an area for the very first time and see, just how that background is. My parents, my dad was from New York, being Jewish as well, and going through the Brooklyn area and knowing that Al had a love for the speed of the Dodgers and the power of the Yankees, and he wanted to make sure that his football team had both, because he loved the speed of the Dodgers from being from Brooklyn, and he loved the power of the Yankees. He wanted to make sure that his Raiders epitomized both of those traits in the NFL. So going through Brooklyn and getting a chance to see the big Jewish community up there, it was unique in my respect. So it was something that I could take in, and I don't want to say enjoy, but actually figure some of those things out. Now, having said that, and obviously you were with Al during a lot of those things, Al was always about speed and the fact that he would indelibly, whoever ran the fastest 40 during the and it wasn't they just had the combine, because the combine is a relatively new process, but whoever was clocked at having one of the fastest 40s in any of the pre-draft workouts, dollars to donuts, that gentleman wound up being drafted by the Raiders.
Well, and that was one of the problems, and not wanting to beat the other thing. I was actually born in Brooklyn, grew up on Long Island, to draw that a little further, Borough Park in Brooklyn. But that was a problem. We took some players, that we in the department weren't all that excited about because they were strictly speed guys. And we talk about that. Now, obviously we had great success with speed players, but if you took a player just on speed alone, I think that was a problem. But if you go back, when Cliff Branch came out, he was. I remember Tom Flores talked about it. This is before me, but he said there was fast, there was super fast, and then there was Cliff Branch. And the other thing that, again, this was before me, but Tom said he couldn't catch a cold, and Tom worked with him and became a very solid player. And I think Al kept trying to repeat that. Guys that really didn't have good hands but had great speed. We had a guy, Sam Grady, was an Olympic sprinter, and it was a big free agent for him. James Jett was a different case. He was a good player, and we had tremendous speed. And in fact, he replaced Sam Grady. But we had. But then again, we had a lot of great players with great speed. I mean, when you put the two together, the Tim Browns, people like that. I mean, it's a great combination with speed and talent, but speed alone just doesn't do it. And then you go on the other extreme, I don't know if the extreme, but, Marcus Allen, ironically, as great as he was, the one negative, and I wouldn't call it a negative per se, he had about a 4.740 time, which is not a great time, but he was so quick. He had the ability to cut at full speed without having to slow down, compensated for that, and was so instinctive and so talented that we actually, he actually run like a 4.75, but that was the only time we really changed the time. We said he ran 4.65 just to kind of make it more palatable to Al, and obviously he turned out to be a great, great player.
Right. And well, the one thing that Marcus did have going for him as well is actually he had two things going for him. The first was that he was a USC product, and Al always loved his kids out of USC. The second thing is that he had a certain trophy where Al liked to collect Heisman Trophy winners. Obviously, his first one that he got was the great Billy Cannon. Rest in peace, Billy. A recent death to Billy Cannon. But Al would like to collect, and I say this in the best way, he would like to collect prizes. He would like to collect people that had those trophies so that people would automatically associate the winners with his team. Or the fact that USC, under the many years that John McKay had them, they were always winners or always vying for national champions. So that's why I'm sure that Marcus was an easier sell. Obviously, if you took a tenth of a second off, then it was a little bit more palatable, as you say.
Well, it's not quite. He loved USC players. Rod Martin. I mean, you can go down the list. Don Mosbar. A ton of them. We write about that in the book. The whole thing between Marcus and it was actually between Marcus and Walter Abercrombie, who was a very fine player at Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh drafted out of Baylor, and it was our choice. And actually, the room was kind of split. And we talked about what happened was Al asked us when we were in the room, and it was kind of balanced. And Al actually wasn't in the room; he was down in LA at one of our never-ending trials. And there were two factors. One, he said he liked the fact that Marcus had played on grass, and obviously the home field at USC was number one. And then number two, the big thing, he was there with one of our lawyers, Jeff Beeran, who actually, before he came to the Raiders, was working for the football department. And he said to Jeff, "Will Marcus block?" And Jeff said, "He's the best blocker I've ever seen." He said, "That's it. We're taking Marcus." So it was obviously the SC thing helped, but the fact that he was such an incredibly talented player, competitive player, he may have been the most all-round player, all-round talent that ever played in this league. And, the only, negative, I hate calling it negative, but he didn't have the true home run speed, but he had great instincts. He was competitive. He was a great passer. He was a great receiver. He was a great blocker, great goal line runner. I mean, there really was nothing that he couldn't do. I remembered, I think it was Ron Wolf's report. I remembered it. He's, loved him as a back. He said, but you know what? He'd even be a great safety if we wanted to do something like that. So, but yeah, he loved, and particularly you're talking about bringing in Heisman Trophy. He loved first rounders that were cut by other teams. And, one of those was Ethan Horton. And there was a combination there. Number one, he loved first rounders from other teams. And number two, he enjoyed projecting them to different positions. And he saw Ethan as a tight end. And no one else has seen that. And when we brought him in, we invested a lot of time in him. And he became a Pro Bowl tight end. Derek Ramsey was a quarterback at Kentucky. And we made him a tight end, was very effective. So he loved projections, and we talk about that a lot in the book as well.
I got a question from Danny Barretto, and this is going to be a tough one to answer there, John, because it's kind of a sticky wicket, but it is a good question. And he said, what was the real beef between Al Davis and Marcus Allen, the real deal, or was it just blown out of proportion?
No, it got serious, and we try and talk about that in the book, and I guess I honestly, discussed it with Al. What the hell is the problem here? It started off, I believe, where Al did not really care for players, not players, individuals who were becoming the face of the team. If you look back on it, the three people that he got out of there was Kenny Stabler, Marcus Allen, and John Gruden. I mean, all great players, great Raiders, and loved it. And so I think at one point he was looking for an excuse to get rid of Marcus. And this was 1986, and I really gave this a lot of thought. We didn't talk about it in the book. It occurred to me a little later. If you look back, it was an odd season. We lost our first 3 games, and we won our next 5, and then we won 3 of the next 4. So we're 8-4. And we're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's a home game, and it was Randall Cunningham, and they were a good team. And we're in overtime, and we've got the ball, and we're in Eagles Philadelphia territory. We're going to run 1 or 2 more plays and kick a field goal. And Marcus gets the ball, and just so competitive. Anyway, the ball, for whatever reason, popped up. A guy from the Eagles got it on the fly. Took it down. Dokie Williams made an amazing play to even get the guy at the 1, and then Randall Cunningham scored on the next play. And I don't think Al ever forgave him, or maybe used that as an excuse to not like Marcus. And he kept, from that point on, was looking to replace him, whether it was Eric Dickerson or Roger Craig, or trying to find someone in the draft. And it was terrible. And Marcus, reached a point where he was just so frustrated. He went on, if people remember, he went on national television with Al Michaels and just accused Al of trying to sabotage his career. And that truly was the end of it. But, there was nothing Marcus did. It should have on anything on any kind of personal level. People have asked kind of goofy questions. I think so. When was Marcus dating Al's daughter, which was kind of a funny question because Al didn't have a daughter, you know. So no, I don't know of anything personal. You know, and again, I'm a great fan of Marcus on every level. So I guess I'd have to point to that. That one play was just that in Al's mind was a way to kind of rationalize moving on from Marcus.
Yeah, actually, for two notes on that. I do remember that game playing the Eagles in '86. Personally, I was stationed in the Philippines, and obviously with the time difference, I had just gotten off a watch, so it was probably about 8 or 9 in the morning, and I'm in my room listening to AFRTS, listening to that game, and at the time, obviously the television hadn't caught up with getting a chance to actually see the game, but listening to it on the radio and just wanting to reach in and strangle everything that happened. And again, with Marcus, you know, fumbling the ball and just the fact that, you know, it's like, oh my God, Marcus, how could you do that? And so, yeah, I remember that game. And yeah, that was, oh my God, how many years was that? 40 years ago? 80, 90, 10, 0, 10. Yeah, at least 40, 30 years ago. And I remember it like it was yesterday. So I remember that game. I also remember the Al Davis, the interview with Al Michaels with Marcus. It was on a halftime portion of the Monday night game, and that's why Al Michaels to me is one of those people that I won't attest to this in a court of law, and I'll deny that I ever said this on a video, even though I'm saying it right now. But if Al Michaels ever came across me, then, you know, if I was locked up for maybe a personal assault, you might understand why. But neither here nor there on that one, because you talk about two of the great Raider haters. Obviously, Al Michaels is one of them, and I have zero respect for him, the fact of what he did to stir that pot. So, and on your second point, as far as the Al Davis's daughter thing, yeah, I heard the same thing. But I think it was more along the lines of that Marcus was semi-involved with either O.J. Simpson's wife, or it was something along those lines where Al had told Marcus to basically not do some of the philandering that he did, and Marcus basically blew him off. And from that point in time, you know, the situation got worse. Again, this is hearsay. I'm not saying it's the truth, but those are some of the things where the rumors become rumor mills, and then it becomes more of a gloss over fact that's not a fact. So that I can attest to some of those things that you've heard about.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. You know, Marcus's personal behavior was nothing I can talk about. I have nothing but the highest regard for the guy, and you know, but you know, you talk about personal behavior on a lot of the players, and you know, they were a bunch of characters. Obviously, a lot of things got overlooked, and so you know, Marcus should not have been singled out for anything like that.
Right. And by the way, again, my comments are hearsay and are rumor, and I am not, I repeat, not saying that Marcus did any of those things. That I do want to have on the record for my own personal protection.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not, and I certainly know anything about that as well either.
Right.
So there we go.
For just, you know, for legal purposes nowadays, you definitely need to make sure you watch your six.
Yeah, well, I'm not, you know, whatever. Marcus was great. I can't say that enough, and no, I'll leave it at that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And while we're talking about speed, like I said, and I know that there was some things that you've gone over, the Sam Williams debacle. I got a chance to read a quick passage on that. I mean, just the sheer love that Al Davis had for that draft pick is just is amazing. I mean, Sam was I don't want to say he was a horrible linebacker, but did Al think he was the second coming of LT or something, or what was really behind that?
He thought he would act, when Al missed a guy, he always wanted to make up for it. And he had missed on, he wanted Charles Haley. He didn't get Charles Haley for whatever reason. He tried to trade for him and never was able to get him. And so he wanted to recover, make up for that. So I did Sam Williams at the school. And I had given him a free agent grade. And then he had his pro day, and he ran a lot better than anyone had thought. And he was like 6'4", 252 pounds, and ran like a 4.6. I mean, those are great numbers. And so the first thing I did after that, because I hadn't given him a good grade, is, you know what, maybe I missed the guy. If I missed him, then I'm going to watch more film. Some days you go and scout, and you have good days and bad days, and it's possible I missed him. So I jumped down. I watched 4 more games, and he was pretty much the same guy. And so I did move him up to the 7th round, just out of respect for the time that he ran. Well, Mike Lombardi comes up to me and says, "Oh boy, did you see those times that Sam Williams ran?" He said, those times are like Charles Haley's times. And I said, "Well, you can call him Charles Haley's times, but he is not Charles Haley." Well, the next thing, he must have run right to Al with those times, because the next thing I hear is Al asking me about Sam Williams. And I'm starting to offend. Well, he locks onto it like a bulldog, like a pit bull. He's not letting go of this. So we're in our meetings, and when the scouts came in, we would meet before we would meet with Al. And I said to the scouts, I said, "Look, I need some help here." He said, "I'm the only one that did Sam Williams, and I don't like him. And so I need everyone to watch film on this guy, Sam Williams. I won't be in the room, and so stay late and come back. I'll come in the morning." So I tell him, he's number 40, and just watch this guy and tell me if you think, because Al thinks this guy is the second coming. So I said, so I came in the next day. I remember it was David McLuhan, Kent McLuhan's son. He says to me, "Did you give us the right number?" So I said, "That's it." So we're together on this. And but Al just won't let go. And Sam was from up in Concord. Again, a wonderful guy. I'm not trying to be negative about him, but he just really wasn't that good. And we brought him in to work out, in person. So Al's watching the guy, and he's a tight, stiff guy, and he looks terrible. And so he says to Kent McLuhan, and Al goes to Kent McLuhan and says, Kent, did you see it? Did you see it, Kent? Meaning how good the guy was. And Kent, who was a great scout, great player for the Raiders, the first bump and run corner in the history of the NFL, he says to Al, Al, I just don't see it. And Al won't concede. He goes, "Geez, Kent, you used to be able to see it." It was just, we all used to laugh about that. And, he came in and Al said he's going to be good for 10 sacks a year. And in fact, I think it was 8 or 9 years we kept him. He had 1 sack. So I don't take a lot of satisfaction in being right in this. It's one of those, you draft a guy that you don't like. I still, in those cases, I kind of hope I'm wrong. But in this case, I'm afraid I wasn't.
I got 2 questions for you. Please. What, in your opinion, and obviously notwithstanding the Jamarcus debacle, because that's written about in your book, and so if that's the question, if that's the answer to this question, I want him not to be the answer, as in like the next person up. But what was the biggest, I want to say, either reach or draft bust that you can remember that Al was so adamant about getting? Was it Wise, or was it Bob Bukowski, or if I'm throwing names at you that are incorrect, other than Jamarcus that he just would not let go of, who do you think was like the biggest just reach bust, or just somebody that Al was just adamant about getting?
Sure. Well, you said Wise. Is that Mike Wise?
Yes, sir.
No, Mike was a good guy. We got him in the 4th round, and he showed some potential, and then he hurt his back, and there was an incident I won't get into that forced us to get rid of him, and he actually committed suicide a bunch of years ago, which was really sad. I would say the two, well, actually the biggest reach, the worst pick was Bob Bukowski. A terrible, terrible pick. I mean, all the scouts that went in there didn't like him at all. And Al took a lot of pride one time. He always told the story, and that was before I was there, about Mark Van Eegen, about how he had walked into a gym and saw Mark working out, and he just ran a couple of times. Now said, "This guy's a player," and he walked out. Now, that's the story he told, and I have no reason not to believe it. Mark turned out to be a great player, and I think he believed that he could make a pick like that, and so he tried to do that. We were watching the Shrine game and Bob Bukowski was in the game, and he made a move. It was called a hump move, where you get your arm under the guy and flip him, and it really takes talent. And he made this one move. Other than that, he didn't do much. And Al got hooked on this guy, and really the guy we wanted was Neil Anderson, who was a great running back out of Florida. But it was one of those drafts where Al wanted to show he was smarter than everybody, and he took a guy named Vance Mueller, another guy who was going to be good for 10 touchdowns a year, and I don't know, he had like 2 or 3 in all the years we were there, and Napoleon McCallum, who was a very, very fine player. So Bukowski was just terrible, and he came in, and we write about it in the draft, in the book rather, and he had kind of a sad ending, actually, a few years, and after we cut him, he and his wife were arrested for running an escort service, and he died just a few months ago, Bob. I think he had cancer, so he would rank up there, but I really think now Jamarcus, very, very talented, and particularly the second year. If you remember, we ended the season with 2 victories, and he was playing really well, and in fact, we beat Tampa in the last game of the year, and knocked Tampa out of the playoffs. And ironically, John Gruden got fired after that game.
I was at that game.
Oh, that's right. Of course, that's your area down there. And if you're, he had a nice game, but it was what's his name? The running back. Who was really good, big, strong running back, had a great game. But we beat him and knocked him out. So, so Jamarcus had some qualities. He really had qualities, but just had no idea of how to work and prepare and show much pride in his performance. But really, the worst pick overall had to be Todd Marinovich, primarily because of the person that we really wanted to draft, which was Brett Favre. Now, when we met the scouts before we met with the coaches, we had Todd as a second-round player with some off-field issues, and we had Brett Favre as the 5th best player in the entire draft. And we're picking, like 27th or something, and Al, wanted to go with Todd. Maybe there's a USC connection, and also Todd's father was Marv Marinovich, had played for the Raiders, and was there's a lot of stories about how he raised Todd to be a quarterback, the robo quarterback, as it were. But the story in the book, and I'll share it with you if you haven't read it yet, was we're fighting like hell about Todd and all the issues he's got. He was always late for meetings and reached the point where they locked him out of the rooms. We brought up the drug issues, and I didn't know it'd be he would end up with heroin problems, but which evidently are valid today from what I read in the papers. But there was a guy, Steve Ortmeyer, who did special teams and also personnel, but wasn't a college scout. But he, after I went over all my negatives about Todd, Steve pops up and says, geez, all my contacts say that there's no problems there. They love the guy. Well, we take a break, and Bruce and I go and confront Steve. And I said, Steve, I've talked to everybody at USC. I didn't really get a lot of positives. Who did you talk to? He said, well, I talked to Marv. I said, Marv, Todd's father? That's your contact? Oh, yeah. He says, everything's good. Well, I mean, I think he was not the most objective commentator on Todd. So anyway, but I'd say if you wanted, the biggest reach was Bukowski, but maybe the biggest mistake was Todd, taking Todd as opposed to a Hall of Fame quarterback in Brett Favre.
Well, actually, it's funny that you would mention that, because one of our viewers is a gentleman by the name of Matt Marinovich, and Matt is related. I actually have asked Matt this before, because a name like Marinovich, you got to be related somehow. And so it's funny as you're talking about this, and Matt's one of my regular viewers. So thanks for coming on board as well, Matt. And Matt also says, and this is the truth, that Marv was the first strength and conditioning coach for the Raiders. So there was another tie there, and that is true as well.
Yeah,
I remember your that little plug that you had with what was your source on that? Well, yes, Steve, you kind of blew the gasket on that one by talking to his dad. And by the way, the running back that you were talking about was Michael Bush.
But for some reason Nick Bell was coming into my mind, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. I'm going to say Nick Bell. That was another fact. We that was the same draft. Where we wanted Favre and a guy named Aeneas Williams in the second round, who ended up in the Hall of Fame, and we had taken Todd and Nick Bell, and we actually called that chapter the Hall of Famers that got away.
Yeah, and while we're on that subject, because is there anything that you can enlighten? Because I'm sure that you might know some more ins and outs that were not already stated on the NFL film study of this, but the trade for John Elway, how many Super Bowls could the Raiders have gotten if Pete Rozelle had not just gotten his wickets into denying Elway or the trade for the Colts to us for Elway?
Oh, it's to lose out on a player like that, and we did everything we could. And again, I was not really involved so much. It was Ron Wolf and Ortmeyer was involved, and we really thought we had this thing done. And Ron Wolf talks about it far more extensively and clearly than I do. But that one just, to have John, to be sort of cheated out of a player like that is just, hard to live with, but, we had great success with, it's one of the things we never really did great drafting quarterbacks, besides, Al actually had drafted Eldridge Dickey in the first round way back when, and it was Ron Wolf that pushed for Kenny Stabler in the second round. And, but if you go down the list of the quarterbacks, Jeb Blunt, was a high pick that didn't work out. Obviously, Mark Wilson wasn't very good, but we did a great job with, trades and free agency. With, Darryl LaMonica, was traded. We got him through trading Tom Flores, and Jeff Hostetler was a very good free agent signing. Obviously, Jimmy Plunkett was a great free agent signing. Mark Wilson as a draft choice didn't work very well. Great person, but just didn't work out. And obviously Rich Gannon and and then finally the Derek Carr thing was a great draft choice. That again was after I left, and I always thought the person they really should be thanking for Derek Carr
was the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ray Farmer. They ought to thank Ray Farmer and send him a dozen roses every week, because he's the guy that took Johnny Manziel instead of Derek Carr.
Actually, I think that's true with Ray Farmer, but I think that we need to give a bushel of edibles to the Jacksonville Jaguars for taking Bortles and the Bills for taking Sammy Watkins so that Khalil Mack dropped to us at 5?
Well, yeah, look, it's always easy to look back on, like Tom Brady in the 6th round, and look, we got Bo Jackson in the 7th round, things like that. Retrospect, it's very easy to do those things. And look, Jackson, it's hard to pass on a quarterback. But yes, no, in the end, it's looking back, there's no question Khalil Mack should have gone a lot higher. But it's like we had a story in the book. We had Angie Koya was a great scout for us and kept trying to get us to draft James Jett. And we actually had Sam Grady was on the roster, and Al was trying to protect him. But Jett was a much better player. And then the draft ended, and James Jett was a free agent. We signed him. So we go to the mini camp, and he looks great. I mean, he catches everything, and he's returning punts, and he runs like 4.3 in the 40. And he was a good player. He probably should have been better than he was, but still was a very solid and a very good free agent signing. So after that mini camp, after the mini camps, Al would meet with the coaches and coach and scouts, go over the players. And so he goes about this guy, James Jett, from West Virginia, who in fact was an Olympic sprinter. And he goes to one of the coaches, well, where would you take this guy now? Oh, I don't know, maybe it's 3rd round. Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, where would you take, someone else? I think it was Tom Walsh. Tom, maybe the 2nd round or 1st round. Boy, what speed. You can do everything. He caught everything. This is great. So he goes to Terry Robisky and says to Terry, where would you draft James Jett? And Robisky goes, I wouldn't draft him. He said, what do you mean? Why wouldn't you draft him? And Terry goes, why would I draft a guy I could sign as a free agent? So I think that kind of put it in perspective. If you knew about Tom Brady, and know how good he would be, and no one else did. Why would you take him in the 1st if he's going in the 6th? Take him in the 5th. So it's Al was had a lot of buyer's remorse. We should have done this, we should have done that. But anyway, going over all the picks there, I think I hope I've answered your question.
No, like I said, definitely a lot of extra insight there, that you've given. And John, the one question that I else had for you was, you were around for the Super Bowl debacle against Gruden and the Bucks, correct?
I was there, yeah.
Okay. Then you were there the following year when Coach Callahan called this team the stupidest team in America?
I think it was after a Detroit game or one game. Yeah, we made a lot of absolutely.
What was the major dissension between Callahan and the locker room that just totally had him apoplectic at that point?
Well, I think one of the problems with the coaches after John was that I think the players. I think one of the problems is, let's kind of go back a little bit after Tom Flores. I believe that the players didn't see the head coach as the person with the authority, and so that towards the end of Art Shell, then we went with Mike White, then we went with Joe Bugle. And I talk about that the last game of Joe Bugle's year, and I said how this is awful. It's Al asked me what I thought. And I talked about it in the book. I said, I'm embarrassed. I said, the players quit, the coaches quit. I mean, this is not worth the effort you put in if we're going to put this product out there. And he said, I'm going to turn this thing around. And he hired John Gruden. And I don't think he realized what he had in John when he got him. I think he saw someone that he might be able to control. Well, John was so strong that if you remember me talking about the story about Larry Brown, John, looked like a kid then, and he was challenged. Larry Brown walked in, and after the first practice, John is John. I don't have to go into how good he was, the power and the authority and the noise, and he didn't miss a beat. And I was walking up the stairs with him in the building, and I said, Coach, that was a great practice because I wasn't used to that much coach and control. He goes, John, I'm going to make these players hate my freaking guts. And I said, wow, this is new. And anyway, so Larry Brown walks into John's office, and again, we talk about it in the book. And he says to John, he kind of challenges him and says, look, I don't like the way that I've been played around here. This is how I'm going to play. This is how I'm going to practice. And this is how I'm going to be used. You got that? He says, yeah, I do. And John calls Mark Ortega and he says, Mark, buy this guy a ticket and send his ass home right now. And in the next practice, and Larry Brown was number 24, which Charles Woodson wanted to wear. Well, the next practice, Charles Woodson's wearing 24, and Larry Brown's not to be found. And that really sent a message. And John was really in control, and it was a great combination with Al and John. And, it was a place the players wanted to come to, coaches wanted to come to. And then when he got rid of John, the first year we had a nice carryover, but after that, I think the players saw that Bill really didn't have the authority. And after Bill, we went to Norv Turner, who was a very good coach. But again, when the players don't feel that you are running things, Norv said, Marcus Tuiasosopo is going to be our quarterback the rest of the season. He played one game, and then Al made Norv change, and that really it sent the message to the players. And after Norv, Hart, we had that fiasco of a year, and after Hart, it was Lane to Cable, and finally Hugh Jackson, I think was turning it around. But I think that was the issue with the coaches. That you have a coach that doesn't look like he has authority. The players are going to not respect him and kind of walk all over him, and that's, I think, led to all the problems we had that last decade.
So you, having said that, you think that if because Hugh had him at 8-8, and I actually in Cable had him at 8-8. So, and I'm trying to think, Jackson followed Cable, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so if Jackson had another year, and actually, if he wouldn't have blown that draft by grabbing Carson Palmer when Campbell went down, and just gave away so much for Carson Palmer. Having said that, if Jackson would have had another year, you think that the team might have made a resurgence prior to the resurgence that they had to wait for under, to a small extent, Jack Del Rio?
Yeah, because and Dennis Allen's a nice person, but he didn't do a very good job. I mean, not for any lack of effort, but he just wasn't a very, and to be honest, I wasn't there for that year, but just watching from the outside, it was kind of a disappointing performance, and and then from him to Sperano, and then Del Rio had a nice run, and then that kind of let up quickly. So yeah, I think that Hugh Jackson. Now, obviously, he's had his issues in Cleveland. Those guys, they finally got football people doing things there now. So I think that's really going to help him as well.
Right. I definitely see a resurgence in Cleveland, which will be good news for all of the godforsaken Browns fans, and I know quite a few of them. So I do see a resurgence in Cleveland, which kind of leads to the next segue, is the fact that this is now Gruden 2. There was a Shell 2, and there's now Gruden 2. What do you anticipate will be, or how good are the Raiders, notwithstanding any major injuries, but where do you see the Raiders being this year and then by next year?
Well, I think, it's obviously John's taking control in many of the areas, whether it's personnel or what have you. So I think that's a big step up, number one. I think Derek Carr is really going to benefit by being coached by John. And again, I'm just watching from the outside. I really respect what Derek's doing, but I think the leadership that he was, the way he was leading the team was more like, gee, it's my fault. Don't talk to anyone else. Put the blame on me. And I think he had to be a little bit more like the Rich Gannon, where if a guy blows an audible call or drops a pass or misses a blitz pickup, I think Rich would call the players out, and I think that's what Derek needs to do, and I believe that's he's going to get that from John. I think that's going to be a real benefit for him. Number two, I think John's getting the players that he wants, so that's going to help him. I think the Green Bay receiver is
Nelson.
Anyway, yeah, I think Nelson is going to be. I think what John's looking for is a steady player like that, and I think that's I think something that Crabtree, very talented, but maybe had good days and bad days, and I think John was trying to avoid situations like that. So I think it's getting his personnel, so that's another factor in his. Now, what's going to be hard, I think it's there's a real adjustment. You got a new coach, you got new staff, you got a new system, you got a lot of new players, and it takes time to adjust. Now, again, John is so strong that maybe he can by dint of will, sort of the way Al would do it by dint of will. That he'll, he can pull this off. I'm obviously a great fan and supporter of John. He's such a charismatic individual. Now, again, if you want to look at another area that might be an issue, he's been out of it for a while now. By the same token, John's and when you say he's been out of it, he's been watching football. I mean, he's a football film junkie, so I think he's on the cutting edge of stuff as well. And just watching the news and reading the papers, it sounds like he's having a ball just at the mini camp. So he'll do great in training camp as well. So I would at the least I would say I'd certainly be cautiously optimistic about watching John take this thing over.
I've told people this, and remember, of history repeating itself. Gruden's first year 8-8. Gruden's second year 8-8. It wasn't until that third year that the Raiders went to 12-4. So again, I still say that this could be a good year, but it's going to be a matter of having this team gel with all of the changes that are going through. It's a very good roster, and there's going to be a lot of good secondary players, and it might happen quicker. But I told people it's not necessarily. Hey, we're about up against the time there, John. That's my cue that we're about ready to go off. We're at 58, so. I say that it could be a good year, but don't be counting Super Bowl tickets as of right now. And I certainly think that we can do well here. I do want to thank you for joining us here on the Ask the Captain show. John, I'll have you on another time again, and it's always a pleasure. Make sure that you put out that website again so people can go out and buy that book.
I sure appreciate it. It's behindtheshield.net. And it's kind of a good-looking website. I think you really enjoy looking at it. And I appreciate, again, the opportunity you've given me to talk about my time with the Raiders. And it's always a pleasure. You always have great questions and observations. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, the pleasure's all mine. Folks out there, again, this is the book, Al Davis, Behind the Raiders Shield with Mr. John Kingdon. I'm holding it up there. Make sure you go to the website and you can ask for it to be autographed or I should say stylized to you. It will be done. Mine wasn't by mistake, but John has already told me he's going to make sure that I get my autographed copy when I see him personally. So it will be done if you go to the website and ask for a personalized copy. John will make sure he takes care of it, and I know he will.
Great. Look forward to it, Jack.
Well, I will be coming out to see you. I will be there for the first game. And again, the pleasure is all mine, John. And we definitely love you here on Raider Reaction. Thank you for spending Sunday night with me, sir.
All right. When you're out here, dinner's on me.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take you up on that, but I won't eat you out of house and home.
No, I got a great buffet for you.
Outstanding. Again, John, thanks again, sir. We'll do this again a little bit closer to the season, sir. I want to have you on again.
Look forward to it. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. And again, folks, for Raider Reaction, that was the author, John Kingdon, for his book. Make sure you come and join us here every week on Raider Reaction. On Sundays, it's the Ask the Captain show. Thursdays, I will be doing the Raider Reaction Ricochet, and we'll have a good time with that. Remember, this Thursday, because it's kind of those lean times here in the summer, make sure that you come prepared with your top 3 sports movies. We're going to have a debate on the top 3 sports movies, and if there's anything else that you want to put into the mix as far as what you do while you're waiting on Raider things to happen, you should be joining us on Friday night, so when it's Black Friday, so you can be watching the great Raider games that there is. But again, I'm out of here. I'm Captain Jack. Yarg, Raider Nation. You make sure you keep it here. Watch me, watch Raider Reaction, and just keep watching our Raiders as we get better and better and better every day. Join me next week and join me Thursday. Join us all. Have a great week, guys and gals, mates and wenches. Take care, and we'll see you next time here on Raider Reaction. Ask the Captain.